It is difficult to arrive at a precise financial figure for many wealthy individuals in history. However, estimates, which have been adjusted to reflect levels of inflation today, arrive at figures which put Elon Musk's wealth to shame. Money doesn't make you rich in a holistic sense, and a crown of gold won't fill your heart. But people across the world will always remember you if you're rich. One of our top 10 was fortunate enough to be an emperor sitting on gold reserves, but he made a lot of his wealth from opening up new markets. From rags to riches entrepreneurs to dynastic multi-generational inheritors, here are the 10 richest people in history. Number 10. William the Conqueror, $230 billion. William the Conqueror, often referred to as William the Bastard, was the first Norman king of England. Popularly known for the controversial way he took power after the Battle of Hastings, William's wealth is estimated to be $230 billion. Having lived from 1028 to 1087, during his rule he was famous for invading and conquering England, taking land and treasure from Sussex to Yorkshire. The more kingdoms he conquered, the more he acquired wealth and profited from the spoils of war, seizing land and plundering treasures across the country. He spent his enormous wealth on everything from tapestries to castles, including the tower's famous White Tower. Number 9. Osman Ali Khan, $236 billion. Once the cover star of Time magazine in 1937, Mir Osman Ali Khan, also known as the Nizam of Hyderabad, was named the richest man by Time magazine, with an estimated net worth of $236 billion. He is the richest man in Indian history. The Khan owned his own mint, which he used to print his own public currency, the Hyderabadi rupee. He owned the Golconda mines, the only supplier of diamonds in the world at the time. He had a personal gold collection that was worth over $100 million and owned over $400 million worth of jewelry, including the famous Jacob diamond, which is worth $95 million today, which he used as a paperweight. Aside from using a paperweight that costs more than some countries' annual budgets, His Majesty was a benevolent ruler who was seriously involved in promoting education to the masses, science, and construction. He made primary education compulsory for all citizens. In addition, according to his decree, it was free for poor people. Number 8. Nikolai Romanov, $300 billion. Tsar Nikolai Romanov, or should I say Saint Nikolai Romanov, since he was posthumously canonized by the Russian Orthodox Church, is the richest saint of all time and the richest Russian billionaire in history. Even though the Romanovs were brutally murdered, their family's wealth was like no other family that had existed. Nikolai ruled over the Russian Empire from 1894 to 1917, during which time they invested in palaces, jewelry, gold, expensive royal clothing, lavish dinners, and art. In 1916, Tsar Nicholas II's net worth was nearly $900 million, which, when adjusted for inflation, was equivalent to $300 billion in 2012. Even the current richest Russian family might not be able to top that. Number 7. Andrew Carnegie, $309 billion. Born into a humble Scottish family, Andrew Carnegie went on to become both one of the richest men and the greatest philanthropist of all time. He was responsible for a massive expansion of the U.S. steel industry in the late 19th century after he left the oil industry to Rockefeller. He famously redistributed almost all of his wealth, giving around 90% of his fortune away to charities and educational establishments. His fortune is estimated at $309 billion at the time. With his wealth, he built over 1,600 public libraries in the United States. In his eyes, it was important to invest in knowledge, and he also injected tens of millions of dollars into American education. And it was even said that his houseworkers and his nurses were not left out of his wealth. Number 6. Yakob Fugger, $400 billion. German textile, mercury, and cinnamon merchant Yakob Fugger was so wealthy that he was nicknamed Yakob the Rich. As a banker, merchant, and mining pioneer, he was Europe's richest man during the early 16th century. His wealth even allowed him to influence politics of the time, since he loaned money to the Vatican, funded the rise of the Holy Roman Emperor Maximilian I, and bankrolled the Spanish King Charles V. He was also quite a giver and built 52 low-income homes for the poor with a yearly rent of 1 symbolic guilder, though the residents had to pray 3 times per day for the Fugger family. The houses still stand today, and the annual rent of 1 guilder, which is the equivalent of 88 cents, is still paid. With an estimated net worth of $400 billion, the Fugger family owned Germany's first secular Renaissance building. Number 5. John D. Rockefeller, $400 billion. Calling the likes of Jeff Bezos the richest man in American history is a slap in the face to John Rockefeller. During the 20th century, this famous billionaire and oil tycoon, John Davison Rockefeller, controlled 90% of the flow of black gold, oil. He created the Standard Oil Company, the largest oil company in the United States. During that time, he owned 90% of all the oil. The company was divided into 34 small businesses. Among these still exist ExxonMobil, Chevron, and BP. John D. Rockefeller was also the first man to raise $1 billion. Converted, his fortune would have come out to about $400 billion. After the First World War, he spent a lot of money for good causes and invested $250 million in his own organization, the Rockefeller Foundation. He literally donated Elon Musk's net worth to charity. Number 4. Akbar the First, $500 billion. Akbar I, also known as Akbar the Great, was India's third Mughal emperor from 1556 to 1605. His territory was approximately at the level of present-day India and accounted for 25% of the world's GDP. The Mughals used the mansabdar system, that is, territories over which an officer is appointed to raise income from the land. In return for this income, the emperor may require soldiers depending on the size of the territory. These officers were not chosen hereditarily, which left Akbar a great deal of leeway. Reigning over 15 such provinces, the empire proved extremely beneficial for the emperor in collecting taxes, which contributed to his $500 billion in wealth. Little is known about how Akbar spent his money, but his royal palace had the rarest furniture, exquisite carvings, and wall paintings. Number 3. Augustus Caesar, $4.3 trillion. There's no doubt that Caesar was a very prominent name at the beginning of the Roman Empire. Being Julius Caesar's son, Augustus Caesar, also known as Octavian, was the only confirmed trillionaire in history. Having an estimated net worth of $4.3 trillion, as well as personally owning all of Egypt for a time, the first Roman emperor Augustus Caesar boasted an individual fortune equivalent to a fifth of the empire's whole economy and was responsible for around 25 to 30% of the world's economic output. Many consider Augustus to be Rome's greatest emperor. His policies certainly extended the empire's lifespan and initiated the celebrated Pax Romana. The city of Rome was utterly transformed under Augustus, with Rome's first institutionalized police force, firefighting force, and about 170,000 soldiers. Number 2. Shenzong of Song, wealth incalculable. During the reign of Shenzong the Song, China became the top maker of bronze, and it was indeed an affluent era in China. The production of rice became to be a staple of the economy, indirectly making them a world superpower. From creating the world's first paper money to starting up the world's first navy, the 1025 to 1087 reign of Shenzong went well for the people of China. The farmers were happy, and Emperor Shenzong was happier. He controlled 30% of the world's GDP. His wealth has been called incalculable. With the speculation of his wealth at trillions of dollars, Shenzong was extremely charitable, and his policies saw to the need of the unemployed, the homeless, and the peasants. He also operated a tax system ahead of most European countries today. and his farmers were given the privilege to own houses in the highly centralized economy. Number 1. Monsam Musa. Wealth incalculable. Monsam Musa, who ruled the Malian Empire in Africa, lived from 1280 to 1337 and is considered the richest man of all time. He is considered the king of Timbuktu because he influenced the city's commerce and culture. He also owned the Bambouk gold mines, which account for more than 50% of the world's supply today. Its territory produced half of the world's gold stock, so it is not hard to believe that his wealth cannot be expressed in dollars, euros, or any other amount of currency. Pictures of Musa depict him as holding a scepter of gold, on a throne of gold, holding a cup of gold, with a golden crown on his head. During his pilgrimage to Mecca, he took 60,000 people with him, each carrying nearly 2 kilograms of gold and dozens of camels, weighing around 150 kilograms each, to distribute the fortune to the poor and the mosques along the way. Musa quite literally paved his path to Mecca with gold and put his kingdom on the map. He spent so much money during a brief stopover in Egypt that the national economy was damaged for years. That wraps up the list of the 10 richest people in history. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments section down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.